Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I'm here today with Cesar Cardona. And he is a public speaker certified in mindfulness from Rice University. And I am so excited to delve down his journey. He has been through it, and we were talking off air about forgiveness and anger, and we're going to delve into all of that. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for having me. I appreciate you very much. And hello to all the listeners out here.
So, who would you say Cesar is at the core?
Ooh, that's not a right question. Cesar at the core is, how heady are we going to get here? Can we get really heady? Or should you want like a practical answer?
Whatever you want to give me.
All right, cool. Cesar at the core is a conscious being having a human experience. I'm happy to say more, but that is what I resonate with.
Can you take us down memory lane a little bit? Tell us about your childhood, upbringing, family dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. My father is a New Yorker, Spanish. My mother is a Floridian, Black female, and they're very opposite of each other. And what's more is that one is a Democrat, the other is a Republican. They both came up from very different ways of living. My mom grew up in the streets. She moved out when she was 16, and she figured out her own life on her own as a way to survive. My father was a straight A student. He was the oldest of his siblings. He went to the military, got out. I have no clue how they got along. I mean, 2 years they were together before I was born. But as long as I can remember, they didn't get along. They were aggressive. They were violent to each other. They were really loud and yelling and so on and so forth. So with those two opposites being kind of thrown at each other here, I never felt like I was at home with either side. And their respective families obviously gave me a lot of insight about who they were. And a lot of it, I read it as them telling me I'm not a part of them because I'm Spanish, but I don't speak Spanish. My facial features don't necessarily lean towards fully Spanish. The Black side would say I spoke too white. They didn't understand why I liked Jimi Hendrix or Beethoven. So I never fit in anywhere in that case. I went through this avenue of most of my younger years. In addition to being isolated because the parents would leave, they would get in arguments or whatever, they would both just split and I would be by myself. In addition to that sort of isolation, it was a cultural, spiritual, internal, intellectual isolation that I never felt like I fit in anywhere. This is also in the South. For the most part, I spent my life in Jacksonville, Florida. I'd go to New York, obviously, too, growing up. But in the South, in the 90s, cultures were just mixing, really just started to mix in that area. And when they did, it often would be met with questions.
Do you have siblings?
I do, yeah. My mother had a daughter before she met my father. She's my older sister. When my parents split because of the times, the court system, when they broke up when I was 4 or 5, she would go with my mother because the judge would say, this is to my father, this is not your daughter. She's going to go with her mom. And then my dad worked a lot as well. So my sister and I bonded whenever the family was fighting, whenever they had any disagreements, any problems, we bonded really well in those traumatic moments. And then, of course, my mom would leave. She would take her with her. So I would have this distant sort of relationship with my sister for a while. As we got older, my sister and I got really close. By my teenage years, we were super close. And now we talk still almost every day. I live in Los Angeles now for the last 10 years, but she lives in Florida. We talk at least once a day.
That's great.
She's fantastic. So that's where I started. And it led me to a road of a bunch of other wild, crazy stuff.
How was schooling for you?
Schooling was mostly not good. I found somewhere in the 3rd grade, I was doing quite well in school. And I was doing well grade-wise. And at some point, I I was making straight A's, and at some point I got a B plus or something like that, and I got a lot of trouble with that. My dad, he was upset about it. And something in me said, if I can do all that work for the last 3 years, but then do this one blemish and then get in this much trouble, I'm not going to, what's the phrase here? I'm not going to apply myself so much. And from there, I was like, I'm out. I'm not doing this. And I started just getting in more and more trouble. I started getting into fights. I started cussing at the teacher. I just got in more and more trouble and stopped caring. I did this every year until I got kicked out of high school. I would just wait till the last bit of the semester or whatever they're called and find out what grade I needed to pass. And I would get those grades real quick, pass, and then just start to cycle all over. So it wasn't that great.
Now, you say you got kicked out of high school.
That's correct. By middle school, I was already getting in a lot of trouble. And by the end of 8th grade, the end of middle school, I joined a gang. By 9th grade, I was fully in gang. I was selling drugs. I was robbing people. I was at shootouts and gang fights, just tons of stuff. By the 10th grade, I got into a gang fight in school, and they sent me to an alternative school. I was there for about, I think it was supposed to be 60 school days, so weekends aren't included, obviously. And I was there for longer. You get in trouble, they give you more days, and I didn't care. What's more is that, like a microcosm of the American justice system, you go into these places and you don't get, for the most part, better. You get better at being bad. You get surrounded with other people. Instead of being appreciated or talked to like a human, you're being treated like an animal. So I just got worse. I got a lot worse. When I got back to the regular high school, they put me on this contract and said, if you get in any more trouble, we'll kick you out. Less than a month later, I got in more trouble. They kicked me out. I was 15 at the time and found a thing online that you could do homeschooling from. They'll send you assignments. And I was on probation at the time because I got arrested. And so I needed to get a job also in order to show my PO that I was doing better. I was doing this, got this job at this restaurant. I befriended a bunch of the employees there, some in their mid to late 20s. And I would get those classworks sent to me. So I just ended up finding one of my friends that I met there, and I paid them to do the work for me. I did nothing but cut corners. I did nothing but find ways to get around things because of anger. Because at the front of it, I didn't care, because I was tough, because I was slicker and I was smarter. But in reality, I was scared. In reality, I was hurt. In reality, I was alone. I was fearful of failing. That's what it really was. I just masked it in anger and aggression and so on and so forth.
Do you think some part of you was looking for attention from your parents?
I suppose so. I mean, just knowing what I know about people, the louder you are, the more you want attention, right? If I search my own thoughts at that age, it doesn't seem like it, but I'm sure it's deeply psychological. You've been somewhere where someone's super loud and you're like, yes, we hear you. We know you're here. Don't worry. We see you. You're beautiful. We got it. I'm sure metaphorically I was doing some of that. But I got in trouble so much when I got arrested. Both the parents, I remember they were upset. They couldn't really do much. Honestly, I got to that stage where, what are you going to do? Ground me? I'm just going to leave. There's nothing you can do. I would just assume that it was a subconscious byproduct of so much trauma and pain that was projecting outward physically.
Now, I want to transition. You mentioned a moment in your childhood when your parents were fighting over you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, this had a psychological footprint on me. It really put me in a path that made me look at the world in this perspective. My parents had already split. I was about, I want to say 3 or 4, probably 4 though. They had already split up. They weren't divorced, but they just weren't together. And I was with one parent. And the other parent that I hadn't seen for some time showed up, just barged in. And they grabbed my arm and they tried to take me with them. Now, the parent I was with, of course, didn't want that. So they grabbed my legs and they pulled back. And over the screaming and the yelling and the threatening. My physical body was just actual tug of war. Now, the super painful, of course, and I was freaked out. I remember it like it was yesterday. But what hurt the most was what I took with it. Who am I? Where do I go? With this way of thinking, the one parent, or this way of thinking, the other parent? And then it was fueled with aggression on top of it. So I took that with me for a lot of my life. I've always felt like I've been in this tug of war. At some capacity, I'm still living with it now. I've amalgamated it to be a beneficial thing instead of making it a harmful thing.
How'd you meld it to be a beneficial thing?
Yeah, so because of all these sides that I've never been a part of, culture-wise, belief-wise, whatever, because I always could understand the other side of the conversation too, because I had spent time with people of different conversations and belief systems. They were at war with it within me for so long. And then at some point I realized, wait a minute, I'm not a part of any of them. I'm with all of them. These are all just different ways to view the jewel of life. Everything that I've experienced is not incorrect, but it is incomplete. And the other part that you're looking at can help complete that first part, and so on and so forth. There's that African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right? There's something to be said there about the collective of a society that can understand a little bit more of each other to get where you need to go. You don't have to agree with them to understand them. So when I learned how to make more sense of that in my own self, I could settle the sides yelling at each other. Instead, I was able to calm myself down and calm the perspectives down with living within me. Then I could kind of start seeing the common thread that, and now I spend most of my life as a public speaker, and as a Buddhist, and as a mindfulness teacher, and as a podcast host, trying to open up that mental avenue to other people as well.
Oh, how did you go from you were arrested, like a shift came in? What made you stop and change?
A shift came in, a shift bigger than any earthquake I've felt in California so far. It was a massive one, and I often think most things in the world are small amalgamations that make the big picture, right? One brick at a time makes the house, right? A couple key points for me was when I was in a gang and I was doing all this stuff, was arrested, got on probation. I had people looking for me all the time for revenge for what I'd done to their family members or their gang members or whatever. The gang that I was in, like there was always this trouble going on and just so much stuff. I consistently kept getting not away with things, but the worst and even some of the like mediocre things wouldn't occur to me. I would be in a gang fight or something like that. And immediately in the middle of all this chaos going on, I would turn to my friend who I was 15, so I wasn't driving, my friend who was driving. I remember the guy in particular. I'd grab his arm and say, it's time to go. We get in the car and like 2 minutes later, one of our friends were like, yeah, the cops came, everybody got arrested. Like all these little things that would occur, right? And then I realized, well, if I'm smart enough to get away with all this stuff, what happens if I apply my intelligence that I'm noticing about myself into things that actually are a part of the bigger society? Because I also was tired of being stressed and tired of looking over my shoulder every day and tired of thinking of when am I going to go to jail at 15? It was a slow transition. That shift happened there at about 17. Just so many times of escaping death got me there. And I realized, okay, the external world's got to change. And I did that. I bought a house when I was 20 in Florida, and I lived in this house. And the external world was much better, but my internal world wasn't. I hadn't done any of the work, right? So depression started to sink in, and the trauma from what happened to me as a kid and the trauma of what I gave as a teenager was just pouring back onto me because I was in this home by myself. So that led me to getting to more of a depressive sense, and all of the things that were bothersome, the troublesome, the traumatic things were happening internally first.
Now you said you bought a house at 20. Congratulations.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. That's a lot of that was my mother. By the time I was 19 or 20, my mother, she had completely changed her life around as well. she got very religious, and she's like settled. She had a husband that she met, and they're still together now. She got like, and we started sort of bonding here and there. And I was living with my biological father at the time, and we got along well enough. We were like roommates. And I realized I wanted to go live on my own. And she's like, you know what? You should buy a house, because this was 2010. The housing market had just sunk 2 years prior. There was a ton of first-time home buyer tax incentives and home buying assistance that I could be a part of. So I just took advantage of all of them. Not getting political here, but it's the same. It's similar incentives that FDR put on to get us out of the Depression. And these were put on to get us out of the recession. And it did that. And I took advantage of those things. And my gosh, it just worked. It was just wonderful. It was a perfect timing for it. But a lot of it was my mother pointing it out to me. She was like, look, there's this, there's that. Go do it. And I went and did it.
That's great that you had that support system and that she pointed that out to you.
She's fantastic, man. I love her to death now. I just love her. She's great.
So you buy the house at 20. Now you're living there yourself, but the internal wasn't what it should have been because you weren't doing the inner work.
Right. I just wasn't doing the inner work. I got to this house as you're 20 and you have a house. I was a musician at the time. I wasn't a spiritual person. I was a complete devout atheist, but with atheism can come science, and science comes data. And with data comes knowledge and information, right? So there's some sort of intellect that's there. So I came across as a very smart and well thought out person. I got my own house there. It's very easy for people to want to latch onto you for that reason. And I have this playroom, this playroom, I should say, to do whatever the hell I want, but I hadn't done the work, like I said. So because I hadn't done the work is when the drinking comes in, and then the sleeping around, and then the drama, and the depression, and the indulging, and so on and so forth. And I realized, I don't know if I fully realized it, but I had an understanding of, I don't like where I am. And I would say I don't like it here is what I would say a lot. I would say I don't like it here. And I can look back on it and say, oh, Cesar, did you mean you didn't like it where you lived, or you didn't like it in your head? You didn't like existing? Which one was it? The answer is both. But at the time, I think I was saying more so I didn't like it in Florida. Like I said, I would just go to all these places in the neighborhood, and I'd be reminded of the trauma from being a kid and the crap from being an adult.
So you eventually left Florida?
I left Florida, right.
It wasn't it.
It was not. It definitely wasn't it for me. I rented out my house. I loaded up my car. I rented out my house and then moved in with my girlfriend at the time. And she was like, just move in with me, rent your house out. And then, of course, when you got to go ahead and do your stuff. And I packed my stuff up. I was originally going to move to San Francisco. I didn't want to go to New York because I had family there. I wanted to go somewhere fresh, but I knew friends in San Francisco. So I planned on going to San Francisco, and then I woke up one morning and something said, you got to go to Los Angeles. I don't know how or why, let alone that atheist at that time was listening to some random voice in his head, right? That's always adorable when people say, one thing and the other thing shows up and they listen to it. So I did. I packed my stuff up. This is 2014. I was just about to turn 25. And I loaded up my truck. I drove from the Atlantic Ocean, which is Jacksonville is on the Atlantic Ocean. There's a beach there. I drove all the way to Los Angeles, which is also right next to the beach, Malibu, Santa Monica. And I'd never been here before. I didn't know anybody. And for the first 2 weeks, I slept in my car. And then I would go out to bars. This is back when I used to drink. And I would meet people. And I would meet friends. I'd meet women. And they would all, just whatever. Like, yeah, come stay with me. You can stay with me. And I would just bit by bit stay these people's places bit by bit. And then somebody was like, hey, I found a place for you that you might like. It's in this part in LA, in the Valley. And I did that. I went in and checked the place out. I had been looking already. I checked this place out. It was a great spot. It was a married couple, these two guys, they were renting out their third room. So I rented there, moved in, walked out across the street, saw this restaurant and said, I want to get a job there. So I walked in, talked to the manager a little bit, got myself a job, and then started building my life in Los Angeles.
And now you are 24 years old.
Yeah, I'm about to be 25. I turned like 25 like a month later.
Now, had you ever done anything like that? Like a road trip like that? Like, that's a far drive.
Yeah, it's a little under 3,000 miles. I have no idea. Can I cuss on this show?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got no fucking clue how I managed to tell myself, "Hey, go ahead, drive that thing, get in that car and go ahead and take off, homeboy." What? I mean, I guess I do, because if I need to do it again now, I would do it again now. But the hubris of I had only driven no more than 3 hours by myself, that I could say, "Let me get in this car and drive 2,900 miles," which could take 2 days, depending on how you drive it.
And you were by yourself.
I was completely by myself.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't driving with nobody. I was trying to get away. Like, why would I?
No, I know, but I mean, like, you're not going to be able to take a break. Like,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Maybe I should go tell myself that so I can fucking, because I can like not do it. I, dude.
but no experience similar to that prior, like a road trip.
Not like that. Well, let me I guess maybe I can reiterate that, because my dad is from New York, like I said. And when I was a kid, we would drive to New York a lot. That's 15 hours. I was a kid though. So I guess maybe the endurance of the longevity is familiar, but I didn't know gas stations needed to stop at this time. And I didn't know that just outside, just west of San Antonio and the rest of Texas is dark. And if you don't get gas in San Antonio, you might be shit out of luck. And I almost was. Like, I was completely almost stranded out there. I didn't know that.
So you get to LA and now you got the job at the diner. And then what?
Yeah, so I went there originally to be a musician, because I've been playing guitar and I've been writing songs. I won some singer-songwriter awards in Jacksonville. And at the time, it was the only thing that I had that was just mine. And I was just going to lean into that as best as I could. I taught myself how to play. I taught myself how to sing, how to write music. And again, I wanted to go somewhere else. So I get there, I'm working this job at this diner. I am playing these shows. And if any of you listening here has not been to Los Angeles, I will say that whatever you want to do and when or want to be in Los Angeles, good or bad and wherever in between, it's here for you without question. This city is, and 10 years saying this now, is the best city I love. This is my home. This is the microcosm of the rest of the world. People come here, they do their work, and what they put out into the world influences the rest of the world by film, music, TV, fashion, you name it. Like, we do it here. This is who we are. And because of that, you can really find yourself in some horrible places. So being a musician, of course, and a person who was suffering with some depression and who was sleeping around a lot and who was drinking a lot and like just being, a 25-year-old on a guitar. And I'm aware I'm a well enough looking person. So it's easy for someone, and women are very confident in Los Angeles. Men are very confident. Everybody's really confident in this city. So if someone's going to tell you straight up, "Hey, I like you. We should go do something." They're not going to waste any time. I'm aware of that. And somebody who didn't have any discipline because he was an impulse to his desires to get away from his depression immediately fell right into the let's just go do all the crazy stuff while playing music and while trying to build a career and while waiting tables and so on and so forth. But one side is always going to take over. And for the most part, it's not going to be the healthy side, because this society doesn't live and doesn't survive on a healthy balance. It survives on getting your internal desires satisfied by the external. But it's a farce. That's an illusion. That's not actually going to happen. You're going to keep chasing these external things. The actual word, if you're looking in the world for insight, is insight. It goes within you. You have to find it in here first. If you don't find it in there, you're not going to find it anywhere else. And this society has been bred to bleed out the inverse thought process. Look on every billboard, every commercial. Essentially, they're saying, you need this to be happy. That's not how it works. That's secondary. You can get this to have some joy, but for happiness, you have to go inward. And to find the happiness and to go inward, you got to find the peace. I didn't have any of that information. And no one told me that. I just lived in a society that said, buy now, come get it today because it won't be better tomorrow. Today's the day to do all the things. What's more, because I lived in this traumatic childhood of all this aggression, there was still a part of my psyche that was there was a part of my psyche that was very, I can't think of a word for it, but I constantly just felt like I can't think long term. So when you don't think long term, you start thinking about the here and now, and you want to get out whatever you can get out. And so my trajectory just started getting just a little more muddy, a little more murkier without me playing music as much. I got tired of waiting tables, and with all this stuff going on, I was also working out a lot, and I met this boxing trainer, and he taught me a lot of boxing. We did a lot of boxing together, and then he taught me how to train. Then I got certified in boxing. So then I started building a clientele because I was tired of working for somebody. So I slowly started building this boxing clientele as a physical fitness trainer who taught boxing and self-defense. By this time, I was 27.
That's amazing. That's a short period of time that you switched to that. You were 25 waiting tables, and then just 2 years later, that's amazing.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I remember in the moment feeling like it had been forever that I was in LA. But I look at it now, like, oh man, that was just 2 years.
That's not a long time. And you had just up and moved from Florida. So it's not even like you had a lot of connections, if any, in LA.
Barely. Waiting tables helped a lot because I did choose a diner that was like a known institution in the valley. So people came through there. They did a lot of filming there. So it did get a little easier in that way. I learned how to polish speaking better and getting across to people. I spent a little time in theater school here at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. And that helped me. I thought I was going to be an actor, not interested in it. But what it did do was help me recognize the tools that I work with really well. What tools I have, what natural tools I have, what uniqueness of me that I can start utilizing and putting to the front of the line instead of, whatever, using other stuff that is maybe not. It helped me decipher those better.
I gotcha. Now you started coaching boxing, and how was that? Did you enjoy that?
It's super fun. It's great. You make your own hours. You're outdoors. In Southern California, the weather is 95% of the time fantastic. And I didn't want to train in a gym because of overhead. I don't want to pay somebody. That's the reason why I went self-employed, because I don't want to work for somebody, right? So I started training at parks, public parks, or I would go to the person. And that independent training meant that I could charge a little more because those people usually tend to have a little more money. And so I'm doing that with whatever music they want to listen to. I get to wear what I want to wear, be how I want to be, get the information out to those people. I can change my schedule if I need a weekend off, especially when, depression came in. It's super fun. There's a small handful of clients I still work with now because I love them. I just love being around them, and I'll be with them until I can't or they can't.
Post that. What made you stop that? You got more into the music?
So I'm a public speaker is what I am. That's what I am. That's what the very deep core of me is as a person. I went through all of these iterations, and I could see how it got me to a place where I could speak to other people to let them know that I spent so much time looking externally for some sort of ultimate answer. I realized the answer you need is living within you. I spent the last 5 or 6 years studying all the ways of thinking in life, and I can just keep tying these threads to one another and pointing them back to the individual. Say, look how precious you are. You got it already. All this stuff is just to help you get there. I couldn't do that with music. I just couldn't find it. I tried so hard. Maybe it's because you got to do 4 verses or three verses and 4 bars at a time, but I need more space perhaps. So anyway, the point is I didn't think of being a public speaker, even though it's such a bountiful thing for me in my life. I was out, we're skipping a little ahead here, but I went to a Joseph Campbell roundtable. And if anybody doesn't know who Joseph Campbell is, he was a famous professor and author, and he is the one who coined the term the hero's journey. And everybody has experienced a hero's journey in their day-to-day life and also in film and movie and so on. I went to a roundtable of people who admired him. He died before I was born. And one of the speakers there was a person who knew him for 2 decades. So I was going to go without question because I adored that man. I adore that man. So I go to this place, listen to this woman talk. I ask a question. First thing first, actually, a woman asks a question. They have a conversation. Secondly, another man raises his hand and he says something as a compliment to her. And then I raise my hand and I make a comment about something she said and how it tied back to something that was really important for me. And it's a symbolic reference to a metaphor about the existence of life. It's a lot. And so we're talking and I break that stuff down, what it means for me from what she said, what it means for me, and then what it means to the rest of the world. And she goes, stop right there. And she says, this is something here. What you did was wonderful. She turns to the audience and she says, you see what he did there? He took this story, he found the metaphor of the real life, he applied it to his life and then applied it back out to the world. That is genius. You, sir, are a genius. I was like, listen, homie, I'm just here to ask questions. I'm not here I wasn't after for all of that. And I'm starting to sweat bullets, I just want to talk about some cool things, man. And so she turns over to the host of the round table and she points at me and says, this is your next speaker. Now, I don't have any speaking experience except for just, talking to humans. I didn't know what she was talking about. To be handpicked by somebody who knew the man that I revere so much. And they looked at me and gave me this massive thumbs up, like, you're on it. You got your finger on it, kid. Keep doing it. So she mentored me after that for some time. Showed me how to tell a story, how to build, how to read a metaphor better, how to understand the connecting ties of all the things in the world, because it goes beyond storytelling. We are humans who consistently live on symbolic gestures. We take an image and then we find meaning behind it, and we use that meaning behind it to tie us together, whether we want to know it or not. I mean, from the very beginning of time, we've used so many symbols. We have the thread of Ariadne and Theseus going into the labyrinth. He uses a thread to go back out into the world. In the Christians' practice, there's a story of one of the ancestors of Jesus where he puts his hand out of the womb at birth and there's a red thread tied around his wrist. And then Buddhists, I'm a Buddhist. As a Buddhist, we have these books, the doctrines are called sutras. The word sutra means to stitch, to thread together, right? We just do this all the time. And then we bring it to a more modern sense. You and I are talking over the web. It's a web, also called the internet. It's a thread connected to itself. When we study quantum physics, we're made of matter. You're matter, I matter because we matter, right? And you break that down into molecules, the atoms and the quarks, and you get very microscopic by it. There's these little vibrations that everything is made of and it's connected. And that practice and that study is called string theory. Like the thread is just there constantly. So I kept finding those over and over again. And she helped me form it right to tell stories that way. So then I picked up public speaking and I did a first talk. I did a talk that living in LA, maybe this is everywhere. I could be just signaling or putting LA out externally, but it could be everywhere. It's that circular cause and consequence of I need this job. Okay, well, you need experience to get that job. Okay, I need a job to get the experience. So I can't get the job, right? Over and over again, the cycle continues. You need experience. I need the job to get the experience. Well, you don't have the job. Okay, can I get the job? No, you need the experience. This circular cause and consequence. The same thing happens here, right? I am a public speaker. I didn't have any speaking experience. Nobody's going to hire me. So what did I do? I rented a place not too far from me. I invited 30 of my friends. I built a talk that have something that I wanted to talk about. And it actually was this story of the thread. My girlfriend, she was a film director for a long time. So she put these 2 cameras up and we shot it like a TED Talk. Filmed it. I had a microphone, recorded it, synced it together, and then cut it up and sold it and shopped it out to these places saying, hey, I've given this talk recently. I would love to give a talk to your place and so on and so forth. Since September, I've done 15 speaking gigs already. This has been less than a year. This is a lot. And it's just completely skyrocketed. And then I got certified in mindfulness, and I'm writing a book, and I'm just kind of toiling all these things together.
That's so amazing. So you didn't have the public speaking experience, but you got people together that you knew and you found a way to show that you could do it even though you haven't done it. Like, I love that.
Thank you.
Finding a way to make it work from where you were at with the situation.
Yeah, that's it. That's a lot of it. In this society of work, task-based work in a capitalistic society, I realized that if I change my perspective from not if I can do something, but how, everything just changed for me. And I would offer that to every other person listening. Change your thoughts from if I can do this to how. The how might be saying not now, but you can do pretty much anything you want. You just got to just think about it as how, not if.
I'd love if we could transition a tad. You probably know what I want to delve down into. I'm not sure exactly when this happened in regards to like when you were in LA as opposed to like after you were coaching boxing, before public speaking, the incident you got into.
Yeah. So this was way before being a public speaker. This was before I was a Buddhist. This was before I was sober. And this was during when I was a musician still and still a trainer. I was assaulted by a group of men. I was out somewhere late at night with my partner at the time.
When you say out somewhere, was it like a bar?
Yeah, I went like a public restaurant, and it was packed. I live in LA. Everything's always packed at night. And there was a woman that was there. She was talking to this guy, and I think he's being a little unsavory to her. So she turned to us because we had some sort of conversation before. She kind of mouths to us, "Help me, like give me a hand here. This guy's being a little weird." So my partner and I walked up to this woman. We put our arms around her. We were like, "Hey, she's a friend of ours. We're with her. We're together," whatever the hell we said. And the guy didn't like that. So this pushing match kind of started. And then my girlfriend and I went to go leave after that. But he went and got two of his other friends, and they ran outside, ran up to us while our backs were turned, and jumped on us and just started beating us down. My partner, they knocked her down. They hit her down and held her down. And then the other guys, all three of them actually, jumped over on me. I was trying to fight back, and they knocked me out unconscious. And then once I was unconscious, they just started stomping on me. Now, I have no recollection of any of this. There's footage I had to watch for it after the fact because the men had got arrested. And my partner remembered all of it. So I hear about that. And I don't have any recollection of it, but I, again, experienced it later on in video footage. It sucks. Nobody should have to watch themselves be treated like that.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 28.
What happened to you from this?
So I was unconscious. Even when I was unconscious, they still continued to stomp on me and kick me. They fractured my eye socket, fractured my nose. The four front teeth and the bridge above those teeth were completely shattered and out. They were gone somewhere in the street somewhere. The front of my tongue had been cut off. So the hospital had to cut off the rest of it because it was kind of dangling. And my bladder was punctured from them stomping on my body. So they had to cut me open, stitch close my bladder, and then staple my stomach shut. And so I woke up some hours later post-surgery. As per the medical records, I did wake up in the ambulance, and I fell back unconscious again, and then I woke up in the hospital. And I gave consent for them to do surgery on me. That's as per the records, but I have zero recollection of this. Nothing. I barely remember going into that place. But I woke up the next morning, super early, like 4 or 5 in the morning. And the nurse was waking me up out of surgery, I suppose. And I look over to her and I say, "I'm dead, right?" She says, "No, you're not. You're in this hospital here. We've done some surgery on you." And I turned to her. I said, "Could you do me a favor? Could you just kill me?" I don't want to be here anymore. I've seen enough and I'm tired. I look back on stuff now and I see stories, and there's a documentary recently that came out of somebody who had committed suicide, and they said often, I'm tired. And I'm like, oh, what a feeling to feel, because I remember that feeling. It's not sleepy tired. It's not body tired. It's exhausted of existing. It is heavy. And of course, the nurse is like, I'm not going to kill you. I can't do that. She didn't say any of that. She knows, obviously, I'm still here. So she didn't nurture me, but she kind of calmed me down a little bit. And I had to go from there and start healing. I had no teeth in the front of my mouth. My face was all swollen and banged up. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't, let alone stand or walk, because my stomach had been cut wide open. And I had to spend time healing.
Wow. Now they found the guys and they were arrested?
Yeah, it took them about a year to locate and arrest them. I had spent that following year healing, getting better, rebuilding a clientele. I wasn't necessarily like, I didn't change everything. It slowly occurred, right? I slowly changed over time. But in that year's time, they did find them and they arrested them. Out of the three of them, they arrested two. One of them left the country. Exactly. That person was offended out there too, who honked the horn. I agree.
I didn't know you could hear that.
I didn't know that they could hear me. I mean, they were appalled just as much as I was.
Now, this year that before they found the guys and arrested them, how was that year for you?
Brutal, really brutal. I mean, there was so much pain in my stomach. I had this, like, the front of my tongue had been cut off. So because it was open skin for the most part, it would burn when I ate food. I had to chew. Immediately, I had to just mash up food and put it to the side of my mouth so I could chew it. Speaking was really hard for me. Again, the front tongue was cut off and the four front teeth were just not there, Took me a while to get that right. I also was still depressed. No one like gets the shit kicked out of me and say like, you know what? We're good. It's good now. Thanks, Seth. I appreciate you guys. Thanks. Here's a $20 bill. Thank you so much. That's not what happens, right? Essentially, some people, it does happen. They hit that rock bottom and over time they change, but not in that moment, So
I feel like even that first year though would have been like nerve-wracking. Like these guys are on the loose. Like I'd have been scared shitless, even more so. Like, yeah, it wouldn't have been good if they were arrested right away, but like, I don't know. That almost like fear factor of, is this going to happen again to me?
Yeah. Oh, I hear what you're asking. Yeah, the fact that they were just flying or anywhere around. That thought was a lot in my mind, for sure. That thought is in my head plenty at that time because, one, yes, we crossed paths once, good chance you can cross paths again. Two, they were big guys. I mean, I'm 5'10". At that time, I was 165 pounds. I had boxing under my belt, but I was still very injured. It's three of them versus me. My back was turned. They're bigger than me. Those are a lot of disadvantages. So there's a part of me that was like, woof, there's a good chance I could see them. And then I would defend myself with what I know, right? But also on top of all that, I don't know what they look like. I have no recollection of it. So I really don't know. So there was for sure a level of being mindful of the people you run into. I knew their names, so you could kind of categorize what they might look like because of their names. But otherwise, you didn't know. And so there's a lot of fear living in that, a lot of on alert at all times. But isn't that like the on alert that I had when I was young in a gang? Isn't that just like me being mindful? Like that trauma was still there, even though I didn't go out actualizing it for myself. I didn't put myself in an environment of gang members. I still happened to be in an environment full of people who were divisive and anger induced. So I was doing it again. The cycle came back around at some level. So yeah, that's a really good point. I had to spend a lot of time with that. I definitely stayed in my area more than not. I didn't go too far away.
I get that. And so about a year later, they arrested 2 of the 3 guys. And so how has the recovery process been for you?
The recovery process has been hard. I did some therapy for the trauma first. I got some, if anybody watched this video, they can see the front of my face, my teeth, particularly normal. These are all fake. I had to get these done. That required a lot of time because you got to let the bone in your mouth heal. And then they make fake bridge, which is the bridge of the bone that's below your nose and above your top lip, that bone back there. They have to make fake bridge, put that in there, let it heal, and then they gave me these temporary, like they're called flippers, these 4 dentures that kind of pop into your mouth and pop back out. And that was a real pain. And then, of course, my stomach was constantly in some sort of pain because staples in my stomach at the time hurt. When you cough, when you sneeze, when you laugh, whatever, your stomach contracts, it tightens up. So to pull on those staples hurt. Then after that, the scar tissue. And to this moment now, I mean, this is 7 years later, and sometimes I still get pain. At least once a week, I get a little bit of pain in the scar tissue in my stomach. And I got to live with it. And there's the night terrors, having dreams, stuff like that happening again. There is being in crowded places and someone standing too close behind you. That's there. I still live with that. I can feel all of it slowly going away. A lot of me being calm about it, and even earlier being able to laugh about it, is me becoming a Buddhist. That helped me a lot. It's one of the top 3 best things I've ever done for myself was that. The healing process was tough in that way. Got super long-winded here thinking about that one.
No worries. Would you say you've forgiven those guys?
Well said and great question. So when they got arrested, they went to court for filing and for sentencing and so on. The judge or the courts, one or the others, I forget who, got in touch with me and asked if I wanted to make sure that they got maximum sentencing. Here's an opportunity that I don't know what these people look like, that I can take this long-handled spoon retaliation on them. I can really stick it to them without having to get my own hands dirty, for lack of a better term. And I spent my whole life being filled with anger and aggression. This is one of the best ways I could get back to them. That they would have to pay restitution. They would have to go to jail for a while, like maximum sentencing. And I don't have to think about if I see them somewhere in the world, right? And then I recognized, and by this time I was a Buddhist, I recognized the anger that was leading that thought, the desire for revenge, the thought of they hurt me, I hurt them. And I realized that if I held on to that anger and therefore informed my choice of saying, yes, give them maximum sentencing, I would have allowed them to beat me down again for the rest of my life because I would be holding on to that. They can hurt me one time. That's their choice. But every single day after that, I make the choice whether I am going to be hurt by them. It's amazing that after 30-something years of my life of nothing but A and B going to war with each other, it's amazing that I realized that even though it was justified if I said, no, this is law, there should be justice, there's a point of me that recognized that I was still speaking from a place of hurt and anger. And so in that moment, I started to practice the forgiving of them, forgiving them for who they are or what they did to me, because they're also hurt too. Because if they were able to do that to somebody, that means that they were hurt, right? That's the phrase, hurt people, right? And then the cycle will continue from there because they're going to be angry for more reasons and go out and do more things. And I am going to not feel justified. You might think that giving it back to somebody who gave it to you is going to make you feel better. Tell me somebody who lives in peace knowing that. Because if you did live in peace, then you wouldn't keep doing that because the cycle is going to keep continuing. So I didn't. I said, Judge, you find what is appropriate for you. They still had consequences. They still were going to potentially go to jail. They still had to pay restitution and blah, blah, blah. Totally understandable. I'm not going to be a part of that anger anymore. I won't do it. I saw where it got me so much of my life. And in that instance, I was just being helpful to some woman who was in need. So that doesn't necessarily compute to one or the other. I still was in a space after the fact, once they got arrested, that they could reap what they sow and I could be in charge of that. But I don't want to be in charge of that. The Buddha says, holding on to anger about someone is like drinking poison, expecting them to die. That's what anger is. I won't have that anymore. I won't do it. So I forgive them wholeheartedly. And I hope that in these last 7 years, this level of peace that I found in my own life, and joy and bliss and desire to be here, I hope that they find their version of it. I hope they already have even. And what's more, they've been instructed to not talk to me ever if they ever see me in public. But if some crazy reason they came to me and said, I'm hurt, I would be right there for them. And I would talk to them like I would talk to somebody that I've known for my whole life. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing here. We're supposed to be changing at all times. We're supposed to be consistently trying to become better individuals. And that doesn't just mean for your own self. Better individual in the world of a society that you have to rely on.
If you could relive that day, would you still help that woman?
Yep, absolutely. No question about it whatsoever. It's to say no is almost to say I regret it, which in some level says I regret a part of my past, which I don't. And why wouldn't I just give my heart to somebody else if I can? Because of all of it, I've learned how to be just better at this sort of stuff. I don't know if the situation happened now with who I am, I would still step in. I would just have found a cleaner way to do it. But yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind, without question.
Now you say now you would still step in. Do you think this, I don't know, now having seen this side of people and you gone through this, I feel like I'm going to answer this question for you and I don't want to answer the question for you, but like, does that make, does it make it, this is me answering the question for you, but it makes sense that sometimes people don't step in.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree. Yeah, I think that people, first off, people just feel like they got their own stuff they got to worry about. And two, if they go and do something and then this stuff comes back, now all the stuff that they have to worry about is now going to be even worse.
Oh, like what if could potentially happen if they try to help?
It's a valid thing to think. It's a valid thing to be scared of, without question. One of the best things I've found in my life lately is realizing my thing is my thing. And in no way do I need to judge or bring down somebody's other way of doing whatever it is their choices are. Even if I don't agree with it. Okay, understandable. I don't know the situation of what got you to this point to make that decision. So why would I give you guff for those choices? I have no clue what you're holding on to, what you're protecting, what you're avoiding. You ever notice that when somebody talks about another person's actions, they say, oh, they did A because of B. They did A because they are B. They did this thing because they're that way, right? But then when you ask that person why they chose something, they're going to give you all the scenarios and situations and the circumstances that made them choose that. Can we please give that same understanding of circumstances to every other individual? I'm not saying let them be a doormat either. You don't got to let somebody walk all over you. But you can try to understand that there's something way more than what you'll ever understand because you're not tied to them 24/7.
That's key. Yeah, like we don't know what led them to make that decision. Their past, what they're currently dealing with. You hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah, thanks. We don't. I mean, imagine how hard it is to control your own mind, Try to think of nothing for 30 seconds flat. Literally nothing. See how hard that is. Try to do every single thing that you like. Try to say no to it for 30 days. See how hard that is. You have trouble with your own governing of your own thoughts and mind because the monkey mind goes crazy. So tell me how you're going to understand someone else's mind. Doesn't compute to me.
So now you said you were with your partner at the time of this. Did she get as bad of injuries like you did?
Yeah, so this partner that at the time is a different partner than the partner I'm with now. Just to clarify that. She did get some injuries, yes. She was hit and she had bruising on her face. She had a cut on her hand from falling down and from broken glasses and whatnot. That was the majority of her injuries because they didn't jump on her. They kind of hit her down to kind of get her out of the way. And then they jumped on me.
Gosh.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish her the absolute best. I'm not in touch with her. I don't know where she is. But I know that she has to live with that for the rest of her life. And she did help me heal so much. And so I thank her for that. There's an immense amount of love for her at all times. I hope that she finds what she's looking for in this world as well.
Yeah, I can't imagine having to witness you go through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about the person that you're with, your partner, somebody you love, watching them have to be unconscious and be just kicked around. She described it to me in pretty graphic detail about it. She often said it was like watching Gumby, like the way the body just kind of flopped around. It's brutal. We're two different people now. I haven't seen her since before the pandemic, but we started really growing apart. And I'm not really interested in connecting with her, but there's a part of me that sends her a deep hug, here and now.
Because of what you went through together.
Absolutely. And, I know her heart is in a good place. I know what she wants out of herself. We spent so much time together. I know who she wants to be, what she wants for herself, and I hope she's obtained that some capacity.
What would you say has helped you have such a resilient mindset post all of this?
There's a ton of things, but the main ones that come up for me is one, I took myself into a Buddhist temple sometime after all of this. Around that same year of the accident, I walked into a Buddhist temple. I had been a very strict materialistic, reductionist, harsh atheist. And there's nothing wrong with atheism. It just didn't bring the best version of me out. I have a ton of friends who are atheists, and they're great people. But it brought out a not so great version of me. So I knew, though, and I was suffering, and I knew that the Buddhists had some sort of conversation about suffering. I was like, oh, they say something about suffering. And I also knew that you could be a Buddhist and an atheist at the same time. It's not required to believe in God. So it was my ego saving itself, right? It's like, oh, you can go do this thing, but I can still be here, right? That is never the case. It's just adorable. The ego. You're just so cute. You want to tap the top of ego's head. So you're so adorable. Look at you trying to save yourself. Get out of here. So I walked into a Buddhist temple. And interestingly enough, I was sitting with somebody. There was a kind of a circle we were all sitting in. And one of the persons who was in charge there was talking about a public figure who is a very unsavory person. And I was very much ready to lean in because the kind of person that they are is not really liked by people who live in Los Angeles. So I knew everybody was going to be like, oh God, this person, that guy sucks, And instead, the person in charge, instead of saying the things that you expect him to say about this public figure, he says, I feels like that person is so hurt inside. And I was like, whoa, hold on, what? That's an option? You can say that about somebody you don't like? I didn't know that was a choice. And I was astounded by this level of compassion, something that I wasn't ever taught. So therefore I didn't really have. And I realized I want some of that. I want to grasp and understand how he got there. So between meditation and reading a lot of Buddhist texts, the Buddha was enlightened by 35 and he died at 80. So he had a lot. motherfucker had a lot of stuff to say. Like Cuz was just, and he's just like the ultimate mic dropper, by the way. I mean, homie just laid out bars basically. And imagine that for 45 years. And so there's tons of books you can read from, and it's endless. You'll never run out of Buddhist books to read. And he would talk so much about watching the mind and understanding why we suffer in this world. It's because we hold on to things and we want them to stay the same. But the nature of life is change. It's inevitably going to change. So it's not your job to throw it away either. It's your job to appreciate it for the iteration that it shows itself in right here and right now. And then when it changes, you've expected it. So you can appreciate its iteration then. That goes the same for your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, your skin, your hair, your body, your age, the people you know, the things you love, the music you love, the food you love, everything inside and out. And when you meditate, little by little, you start to find that bit of space between all of those things and yourself, capital S self. And that capital S self is consciousness, your conscious awareness. That thing has been there with you at all times, and it's never changed. It's got no smell, no sound to it, no color, no form, doesn't run out of air, doesn't run out of energy. It's active right now. You and I are talking in my dreams and in my deep sleep. It's always there, and it's never changed. So you resonate with that, and you get to watch the ever-turning cosmic symphony of this planet, of this world, of this human experience, of the mystery of it. And everything after that changes a little bit. You start to realize the beauty of every given moment. Because I had depression, and depression is the trauma of the past. And anxiety is trauma of the future. But if you are here right now, this is the only eternity you're ever going to find. In this human realm, that is. Because to be present right here and right now is not thinking about the past and the future. So that cuts out time. And that actually is eternity. It's got nothing to do with time. It has to do with being present. When I got there, the waters of my mind calmed down, and I could see so clearly after that. Buddhism is what really did it for me. After that, I found Joseph Campbell, and the rest is, those are my two pillars I hold on to, and everything else is byproducts of that.
Wow. Hearing that phrase when you went in the temple about they'll help people, that I got chills when you said that. Like, I got chills. Like, I know I didn't go through what you went through, but hearing that must have helped. It must have. Like, that they...
My job is not to change those people's minds and their actions. My job is to change my own perspective of it. Somehow that changes the world as well, which is a very funny way of the world works. Rumi, that famous Arabic poet, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, I was smart, so I wanted to change the world. And then I became wise, so I changed myself. I love that line. Another mic dropper, Rumi. You know Rumi?
Yeah.
He's fantastic. He's just so great.
You are insightful.
Thanks. It's a lot of reading.
I get that. No.
I'm picking up on that, Cesar. I can tell you have a lot of books.
If you don't want to delve down, that's okay. But I'm curious, like, changes post this incident for you, like your body, are you able to walk now? Like, how is that? How are you able to function post this?
Yeah. A beautiful question. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, I can totally walk. I can do pretty much everything. What some things occur is that every once in a while, because of the impact on my right eye, I get a little fluttering of light sometimes. Sometimes I get a little bit of a headache from the impact. There's almost always pressure where my teeth and the bridge are. There's just a little bit of pressure because there's screws in there. It's just like twisted. You just feel it. The front of my tongue, actually, not all of the tongue, but the front of it, it'll grow back. And it grew back, actually. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. When I do workouts, if I do a little too much ab work, then I'll feel it in my scar tissue the next day or two. So it's a matter of doing just enough consistently without going overboard. So yeah. Otherwise, aside from those things, I'm okay. I feel okay physically in that way. And ironically, I feel better than I ever felt in my life. psychologically, spiritually, mentally.
That's fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
That's fantastic. So, what's your biggest tip for people listening to us to forgive somebody?
Forgive somebody. Oh, wow. Yeah. So the biggest tip to forgive somebody. I would, there's so many. Here we are. In order to forgive somebody, you got to recognize that forgiving that person is not releasing them of the shit they did. It's releasing you of holding on to it. Forgiveness is more about you than it is about them. If you consistently not forgive that person, you're just giving yourself anger for it. You and I had this conversation before we started recording in the dialogue. Think of any person, whoever you are listening right now, think of a public figure that you don't like, that you really don't like. Think about them right now. If that person doesn't know you, they have no idea you don't like them. And there's a good chance they probably don't care. So who are you hurting because you're angry at them? Who are you affecting? So your job is to forgive, and it's releasing that person of their hold on you. And that is doing a better favor to you than it is to that other person.
I love that. What's true? Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Amanda. You have been fantastic. You are an absolute jewel. I appreciate you so very much. Thanks for laughing at all my silly, stupid jokes.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I appreciate it. I thought they were funny. Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Yes, absolutely. He's fantastic.
I'm a big fan, and he's got a podcast called On Purpose. You might know what I'm going to reference, but he ends his podcast with 2 segments, and I've stolen them, and I end my podcast with those segments.
All right. Great.
First segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions that need to be answered in 1 word each. What is 1 word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Calm.
What is 1 word someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you as?
Warm.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Resilient.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Optimistic.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Kindness.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
Be kind to yourself.
Why is that the best?
It's the best because we have to live with ourselves every single day. If you love somebody out externally and they came to you and said they did some stuff that was bad or wrong and they felt terrible about it and they don't like what they did, do you say to them, yeah, it's because you're an idiot, because you're dumb, because you're stupid, because you're wrong or whatever? You don't. Usually, if you love that person, you're going to be kind to them. So why would you use those sort of words to your own self? Be kind to yourself.
I like that example. What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
You cannot do that.
Why is that the worst?
Because the person is projecting their own fears onto me. They're assuming that what they don't think they can do, that I can't do it. And also, what's more, if I can be a little braggadocious here, I've done a lot of great things in my life because I've been resilient about it and because I was focused and I cared enough about it. So to tell me that I can't means that you don't know me.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Drinking.
Do you drink at all now?
Totally sober. I take that back. California sober. I do psychedelic mushrooms, but I do it as a meditation. You sit, you meditate for a while, you write things out, you cry it out, so on and so forth. But other substance-wise, for like escapism, no, none of that.
Love that. If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
Oh my gosh. Can you read it to me again, please?
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
He gave more than he took.
If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
Oh my gosh, that's brutal. The law, huh? Everybody should have to spend a month with somebody from a culture or belief that they don't agree with. And you can't be violent. You got to figure out how to work the thing together, like problem solve or something, you know? Why? Is because you will find out so fast how much more we have in common. You will find out so fast how similar we are as conscious beings in this world. You will find out so quick how unimportant the separation, that's the things that separate us are. They're so unimportant. They're so trivial for the most part.
I like that a lot.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor being here. Thank you for asking these amazing questions and being your wonderful self.
Yeah, of course. And now, where can listeners connect with you?
So my website, CesarCardona.com. I'm sure you'll put the show notes for it, but my website's there. I highly recommend you join my newsletter. My newsletter just sends out stories of resilience, of cool things happening in the world. I share also evidence-based good news happening in the world because there's a lot of good things that still happen. We're just not being shown it. And then I share companies that treat their employees well, who are good to their investors and good to the environment, and we can vote and spend with our dollars.
Love that. Yeah, I will link all of that in the show notes. And I do like to always give it back to the guest. Any final words of wisdom you want to share?
Yeah, your clarity is closer than you think.
I like that. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. Phew. What an episode. And that episode with Cesar was so powerful. Honestly, I'm still sitting with a lot of it. I hope this episode was as inspiring for you as it was for me. The biggest thing that stuck with me is how Cesar framed forgiveness. He said holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. As Buddha said, and that hit me. Forgiveness isn't really about letting someone else off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. Another piece that really resonated with me is resilience. Cesar has been through so much, and yet he still chooses compassion, peace, and growth. And that's such a reminder to all of us that resilience isn't about pretending things didn't hurt. It's about facing the pain and deciding who you want to be after. And then there was this simple mindset shift that Cesar shared. Instead of asking if something is possible, ask how you can make it happen. That one small word change opens up so many doors. Not if, but how. Your mind will begin to think differently if you ask yourself if versus if you ask yourself how. So I'll leave you with this. Where in your own life could forgiveness bring you peace? Where could resilience change the story you tell yourself? And what would shift if you started asking yourself how instead of if. This conversation left me inspired, and I hope it spoke something in you as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Manders Mindset. I really hope it resonated with you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can connect with me on social media. Thanks, guys. Until next time. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.